Don Mazzella again here for Small Business Digest. You know, people have been asking us after finance, the biggest question they ask, how can my small company create an aura that sets us a little bit apart? Well, fortunately, Martha Marchesi came along and she has some ideas on that. So we asked Martha to join us. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on Small Business Digest.
Okay. Martha, as we asked all our guests, first tell us a little bit about yourself personally, then a little bit about your company, and finally a website.
Of course. Well, I have been in advertising on the agency side for, hard to believe, almost 40 years. I started as a junior copywriter on Madison Avenue, and I was very fortunate to work for a lot of wonderful agencies, Young and Rubicam, Saatchi and Saatchi, Gray, just to name a few. And I rose up through the creative ranks. But as I did, I got more and more involved in strategy, and I found that I loved it. So about 10 years ago, I came to JK as our Chief Strategy Officer, and I've been in the CEO role for about 4 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So now tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, JK, we have been in business for 37 years. I'm very proud to say we're a women-owned agency. We're headquartered in Hillsborough, New Jersey. We started grounded in design, and we grew to be a full-service creative agency. We're about 50 people. We have two core service lines: branding and messaging, and employee engagement. We work across B2B, B2C, and B2E audiences. We work with everything from startups to global brands. And at this point, I don't think there's a vertical or industry we haven't worked in.
Okay. And finally, a website.
Yes, you can check us out and our work at jkdesign.com. J as in Jello, K as in Koala Bear, design.com. jkdesign.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Okay. Martha, um, I'm a new company. I do widgets. I create widgets. I want to go out there and somehow or other make myself known in the industry. Give us some ideas of one question is, what should we be asking you as the agency, and what, as an agency, what you should be asking us?
Sure. And I'm going to use our own experience as a small business, because Don, one of the things that's interesting is we've always aspired to be a small business. We could have grown to be 100 plus people, and we chose not to. We've been very deliberate about our size because we think it's a strong competitive advantage. So my first piece of advice to any small company is own that position. It's really important to go out with a very strong point of view about your company and a very strong position for your company. And when we go out to pitch business, we do just that. We tout what makes us an advantage as a small business. And I'll give you an example. When we pitch business, one of the things we say is that we offer, while we're big enough to be full service, we offer very personal hands-on service. That's a big advantage. We see that we are more agile as a small company as compared to some of the bigger agencies. And I think the other big thing is the touting the involvement of senior leadership. When we pitch business, the people in the room are the people who will be working on the business. We don't pass it off to a B team or C team. The A team is all that we have at JK. So I think it's really important for any business to build a strong story for yourself. Own your size. Don't hide behind it. Tout it as an advantage. Go out with a very strong, focused position. Our position, frankly, informs our business model. It impacts our sales outreach. It impacts our hiring and our staff decisions. So I think it's so important for a company to really create a very ownable story and ground it in the fact that you are a small business. I've seen companies be very, very successful because they're very, very clear about who they are and what they can offer as a small business.
Well, let's stop right there. So a lot of people have a business, but they don't really understand who they are and what they are. How do you get them to kind of look at themselves and say, this is who we are?
And that's one of the biggest challenges when we work with clients is finding how to articulate that in a couple of sentences, that all important elevator pitch, if you will. And I think the biggest thing is really looking at what your core value is and distilling that down into a very cogent message. You can't have lots of different points of view because it's confusing. You have to really stand for something as a business. And if you can articulate that very clearly and concisely, it helps you to stand out. We're very, very clear about what we offer. And just as importantly, we're very, very clear about what we don't offer. And I think that's part of it too. I'll give you a great example. Recently, we declined an RFP. It was for a large healthcare organization. And believe me, it's really hard to turn down work. However, as a small business of 50 people, we knew that it was beyond our capabilities. We'd have to bring in a lot of outside resources. And frankly, that was a risk we weren't willing to take, not for ourselves and also not for the client. They hire us because they know we're going to deliver. And we want to make sure we do. It was just too uncertain and too unknown for us. We went back to the client and we explained why we were declining. And do you know that that transparency and that authenticity about us as a business, they came back to us and said, we understand why you're not going to participate. However, we have 3 or 4 other projects we think you'd be perfect for. So by owning who we were, it actually worked to our advantage. We didn't get in over our heads. In fact, we got offered other projects. So again, I think it's challenging for companies to focus in on that essence of who you are as a company, crystallize and articulate what you offer, stay true to it. And that's how you really become distinctive in the marketplace, because you become synonymous with a certain thing, a certain platform, a certain product, a certain point of view. And that ownability is what helps you to stand out.
That's very good advice, but let me go a little step further. You and I both met people who simply won't listen. Okay, and they're going to go that direction. How do you get them to kind of at least look at what you're trying to say?
Well, I have to say, we have a very proven process for helping companies create a position. And we work through it with them. And I've had some naysayers at the beginning of it. They kind of know who they are. They think they know who they are. And by helping them distill it down, helping them to examine who they are with a fresh set of eyes, a lot of times we'll look at who their competitors are. Because look, every company is looking for that fruitful competitive space where their voice can be the loudest. So it's interesting when we help them look at their business through a fresh set of eyes, when we help them look at their business through the competitive set, when we listen to each of them explain their company in a different way, and that lack of consistency, that tends to be very eye-opening for them. So we work through a process. It's very proven. It works over and over. And I will say by the end of it, they're willing to look at possibly the fact that they might not be saying something in the clearest, most direct way possible. And then, like anything else, the proof is in how your story resonates. The proof in is, are you making a connection? Does it sound authentic? Are you getting feedback that it's attractive? So I do think, especially look, in today's market, standing for something, having a clear voice, a singular voice, having it all come from one place is probably more crucial than it ever has been before.
Well, you identify who the client is. Now that you go to a client and say, do you then try to figure out what a budget is needed? What's the next step in the process?
Well, look, obviously we sit with a client and we understand it all starts with their business goals, and any brand plan, any messaging plan has to align with the company's business goals. So we look at where they are. What are they trying to do? What's the market look like for them? What are their growth plans? And then we help them build a position and story that aligns with that. So it can be breaking into new markets. It can be trying to reconnect with an audience that's moved away. So really, it's looking at what are the goals and then what's needed to reach those goals. Sometimes it can be a bigger, more pervasive lift. Other times it can be tweaking a story. Nothing stays, you can't stay stagnant. You've got to constantly be looking at who you are and what you're saying. It's a living, breathing thing. As you evolve, your clients evolve, the marketplace evolves, you have to continue to evolve your story. So again, looking at where you are, what your goals are, and what you need to connect the dots to those goals is where we provide our value.
Well, I'm going to stop and ask another a question. Said, of course, we're a women-owned company.
Yes.
Um, okay, and I get maybe 10 to 15 emails a day saying I'm a black-owned, woman-owned, etc. Is that really an advantage in a small business?
I think it's an incredible advantage. And I want to talk for a few minutes about what I call badges. I think badges are very powerful today. We recently became a women-owned business. Our ownership shifted so that our founder, Barbara Collius, could have a principal stake, because we are seeing that there is a shift in the market to want to work with more diverse organizations. We also are certified as a small business. And I highly recommend to any small business to look at that certification. Now, you can get certified at the national level, at the national government level, through the Small Business Administration. However, that's a very daunting, complex process. And for an agency our size, with the bandwidth we have, we decided that we wanted to get certified. We'd want to start by getting certified at the state level. So we are certified as a small business enterprise through the state of New Jersey. We do a lot of business in New Jersey, and we are seeing that for us, it instantly telegraphs where we live in the agency ecosystem. We do a lot of work as a support agency to big brands who have established AORs, but they're looking for smaller agencies to do some of that lower tier support work. So instantly it signifies where we live in the agency ecosystem. And I will tell you that as a women-owned business and as a small business, we are seeing a commitment from companies who want to diversify with their partnership portfolio. They're looking to diversify. They're looking for small businesses. They're looking for minority-owned businesses because they want to diversify their partnership portfolio. So I think it's a very good thing to have. I would recommend companies to explore it because, again, it helps to further define who you are and telegraph who you are to prospective clients, procurement, et cetera. So again, it just helps to clarify your story. So we are seeing that, yes, it is an advantage and it's opening new doors for us.
Well, then let's turn the other side of it. What does that do for companies that are owned by men?
Well, I think that companies that are owned by men want to certainly work with companies that are owned by women. I think that what we're seeing across the board is that companies owned by men are wanting to also diversify their portfolios. I think we're seeing a very different playground now, and that there are lots of players in it, lots of different kinds of players in it. And so I think it's an advantage on both sides. I think it's an advantage for male-owned companies to get out there and say, look, we partner with female-owned companies. We have clients who are female-owned. So think about if you're a male-owned company, you have clients. We have companies who hire us. They can say they work with JK Design, who are female owned. So it all factors into the diversity play.
Your website again for our audience?
It is jkdesign.com, jkdesign.com.
Okay. Well, you brought up some interesting points, but let's say that a woman comes to you. She has a baby clothing company. Let's use that as an example. What are some of the questions you will ask her in order to get her to some traction in a very competitive industry?
Sure. Well, first of all, we'll look at what her product offering is. We'll see how many competitors are out there. We'll look at what she's built in terms of her own messaging and story, what she's put out there. We always look at what are current communications. What are you saying and how are you saying it and where are you saying it? That's critical. We'll certainly look at the story she's built. Again, as I said earlier, we'll align it with her business goals. Where is she? What kind of audiences is she trying to acquire? And we'll look to see where the gaps are in that story. Also, especially with a company like that, I'm assuming she's looking at the desire to grow. We want to build a brand platform that aligns with her growth platform. The last thing you want to do is invest time and money in a story and then a year and a half later have to pivot. You want to be able to build a platform that can grow with you. That's probably one of the fundamental things we look at when we're looking with companies that are looking to expand quickly.
What do you mean by a platform?
What I mean by a platform is every company, every brand has to come from a singular place. You've got to stand for something. You've got to have one overarching message. You can tailor that message to different audiences, of course, but it's all got to come from one place. I can't tell you how many clients we've worked with, small, medium, large, global, where the story's fractured because they're telling different stories in different channels to different people. And the trouble is, there's no consistency. And in my book, consistency is king. You've got to come from one place so that people understand who you are and what you stand for, because then they're going to connect with you. So we build an overarching platform. Again, you can tailor your message to different audiences and different channels, but it's all got to come from one place. That's probably some of the most fundamental work we do with businesses of all sizes.
Okay. We've got it now. We've got a singular message. We have an idea of what we are. But now, how do you go about deciding what channels to go into?
Well, that's a great question. And of course, that's very dependent on budget. We look at, especially for smaller companies, obviously budget parameters are there. So again, it's looking at the mix of where can you have the biggest impact. We also look at a phased approach because not every brand or company can do everything all at once. So we look at what are the critical must-haves that you need to do right away in order to seed yourself well, especially if you're going into a saturated or growing competitive space. What are the must-haves? What do you have to do right away? And then what comes after that? And then what comes after that? What's immediate, short-term, and long-term? So we'll build out a brand plan that aligns with budget because we're very cognizant. Dollars have to go further and dollars are tighter. So we really look to be very smart about where and what we spend for companies, especially when they've got a bigger story to tell and they've got multiple audiences.
Well, for instance, let's take one that just came up recently, PR.
Mhm.
Uh, Everybody says PR is good, but how do you evaluate PR,
Mhm.
and especially if you're a beginning company?
I love that question because JK is a small company and we are really leveraging PR for the first time in a truly meaningful way. So I'm going to use us as the case study for this question. We have done PR in the past. Admittedly, it's been most of our own efforts. It's been rather piecemeal. And one of the things we've realized as a small business is the power of PR if it's done in a consistent fashion. So we have invested PR dollars in a way that unlike anything in our history. And I think the power of PR for smaller businesses is that it is the stepping stone or the catalyst to a larger stage. Small businesses, sometimes I can tell you for a while, we felt like we were just talking to ourselves because our PR universe was small. And now what we're seeing that with the right efforts and placement, PR can be the catalyst to put you on a larger stage. It can put you in publications or on stages or on podcasts where suddenly you are connected to a larger audience. And I think that's the power of PR for a small company, is that it can help put you on a larger stage. It can give you a louder voice than you might have had previously. And that's what we're seeing with PR. And that with the right placements and efforts, it can really have an impact on your business.
But how do you evaluate a PR firm?
Well, some of it is also to budget. There are, I've worked for lots of agencies that can afford very large and expensive PR firms. So I think you can look at boutique shops, you can look at consultants, especially consultants who are knowledgeable about the spaces where you do business. JK has a lot of experience, but we've identified areas that we call kind of our core areas of opportunity. And if you can find PR experts who have knowledge of those industries or verticals, it's a big win. So it doesn't, you don't have to engage in a big firm. You could certainly find boutique, or even, as I said, consultancies, where you can lay out your business goals, you can lay out a realistic spend, and then together you can look at where can those dollars do the most for you. Thought leadership for any small business, I think, is critical. I think it's really important to invest in thought leadership.
Again, I'll ask you your website one last time.
jkdesign.com.
Okay, spell it out for our audience, please.
J is in Jello, K is in Koala, Design, DESIGN.com, jkdesign.com.
Okay. Martha, we have just a few minutes left, so you get to tell the audience whatever you want to say.
I will say that I think for small businesses, for any small business, and I'll use JK, it's so important to have a very defined, singular position and voice for yourself. Be authentic to who you are, have your business model supported, have all your external communications supported, including PR. And lastly, I'll say, as a small business, I think it's really important to invest in your community. I think it's really important to invest in your community. I think it says a lot about you. At JK, we're invested heavily at the local and state levels, everything from Habitat for Humanity to Embrace Kids to Grow a Row. I think it's really important to be invested in your communities and have a presence there. So I think if you can really create your story and your voice, be smart about your marketing dollars, leverage PR to get yourself on a larger stage, invest in a small business certification that becomes a symbol and a signal of who you are to prospective clients and procurement, and be a strong presence and voice in your community. I think that's a winning combination.
Well, we'll give you a chance for your website, and then we can close this out.
Of course, jkdesign.com, and you can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, jkdesign.com.
Okay. On that note, Martha, we say thank you so much for a very illuminating time together. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.